Hey, man, first of all, thanks for the time. How's things in your world?
Hey, we're getting ready to go back out on tour. So, all may not be completely right with things, but we are going to rock. So I can't wait to get back at it.
Well, your microphone's working. Everything seems to be in order. So I guess we're okay, right?
Stacking successes, my friend, one at a time,
Yeah.
however small or large. We're ready to roll the wheels and let the wires fire, you know.
Yeah. Let the wheels, go where they may. It's funny. Somebody just asked me what I was wearing, and I thought, I better show you what I'm wearing because
Oh, look at you.
you didn't get the memo to wear the WRIF t-shirt, but I'm just kidding you. So
Yeah, that's a record company T-shirt for those of you listening. That's appreciated on a high level. I'm also wearing an artist, Mike Kroll, my buddy. He's a great artist. So we're both representing artists. We
yeah, what's
hopefully
that
like.
say? Verse, chorus, verse,
It
burn,
says verse,
burn
chorus,
bridge.
burned bridge, chorus.
That's awesome.
He's a good punk rock band right there.
Yeah,
So
there you go. That's cool,
yeah.
man. So you guys getting ready to go now? I've been asking a lot of the artists I've been talking to. Now, you guys have played a couple gigs, right? So what was it like going back on stage for the first time after being, told you couldn't?
It was, there's no way to undersell how sacred and beautiful and inspiring it was. There's no way to say it high enough. Getting piece of your soul back, getting to experience these songs for the first time live, the new songs, even getting, because the album isn't full, we've got a couple songs that have hit the pavement, like How High and whatnot, but and having not gotten to playing songs that are new in front, we play a few that people hadn't heard, and getting to see what just that initial cold splash of water in the face looked like, and getting that reception, and then playing the old songs. And we're a 5-piece on this tour because we went in on this record with Dave Sardi, the producer who did like Modest Mouse. He just did the new Modest Mouse record. He's done Oasis, Red Hot Chili Peppers, LCD Sound System. So he's got a pedigree, and we went in, we said, instead of making a record that's like what we've done before, which is make the record in our own house, we're like, we're going to hang to our roots, but we're going to expand this sound. So keyboards, 2 guitars, sometimes there's just all sorts of stuff, 4 or 5 part harmonies at times. And so at the end of it, we're like, well, we can't do this as a 3-piece and stay live. Johnny Elkins, who was my guitar tech, really soulful, like grimy kind of rock and roll guy, real good guy, good band player. He's not an ace. He's got heart when he plays.
Right.
And that's what we need, because none of us are aces. We're just a rock and roll band. And then Wesley Flowers, he was this guy from Georgia who's playing keys, and he's so positive. It's like he's like bringing in this fresh perspective all the time. So we played 4 or 5 shows, and they've all been really killer. And it's been so fun for me after all these years of being a 3-piece, not having to hold down the whole guitar section plus the singing plus it's like play with a little space sometimes. If I want to get after it, I can get after it. I want to sit back and hear the band, I can sit back and hear the band, sing a chorus and hear like 3 other people singing with you. It's like, wow, this is a good idea.
Yeah. Do you ever think maybe you should have done this earlier?
Well, I believe that you can't change the past, and I don't really have, there are things I would have done differently, but I don't have regrets, as far as like, I always look at everything as learning experience. So we got where we got, and we're here, and we're on the radio in Detroit. So, hey, what can I say? We got to tour with Bob Seger, one of Detroit's finest. So we did that as a 3/4-piece. So whatever it took to get here.
Yeah, man. Well, I'll tell you what, got a lot to talk about with this record, but what was it like touring with Bob Seger? Did you get a chance to meet him and stuff?
Yes. And so I could say so many stories here, but I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. But because this is Detroit, we got the gig because of that Sunday night gig we played in Detroit. His people saw us there.
Really?
Yes. And they were like, oh yeah, Bob would like these guys, and he approves his opening acts. So he approved us. And when you just found out, just like sitting and growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, and I married a Detroit girl, by the way.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Seeger was in Dad's. I don't remember ever not hearing his music. I mean, he was in Dad's collection. Dad was always spinning Seeger, the Boss, all that stuff, and I loved it. And so when we found out that he'd approved us, that was crazy. Then we show up at the first show, and he came out. We were doing our sound check, and we're playing our sound check, and all of a sudden he comes out from the back and he sits down and starts watching us, and I'm like, oh my. That's like, that guy's not even real to me, you know. And afterwards he came up and he said, hello, welcome to the tour, which was amazing. Second night, there's so many things. He was so down to earth, man. It was ridiculous. Second night, that first night we didn't get a very long sound check because it's just the way things go. He was just starting, we were doing the thing. Second night, he comes up to me as he's leaving the stage, and I'm about to go on a stage. So I'm trying to give him his space, and he looks over at me. He goes, hey, last night you didn't actually, he said from the stage, excuse me. There were so many of these experiences. He goes, he sees me standing next to the stage, and he goes, these guys didn't get a good enough sound check last night. Let's make sure they get time. And I'm like, not one person was there to see us. And I told that story from the stage every night because I was like, this is a person. The reason he could write those songs is he never forgot what it's like to be me, what it's like to be you, you know. he and then another thing that was just astounding is he's at the end of the tour. Well, we played the Forum in Los Angeles, which is like this big place in LA that's like legendary, and he comes out and we're doing our sound check, and every time he'd come out for a sound check, I'd get really professional in my head and go, all right, we got to get through this fast again. Well, we were playing a 35-minute set or whatnot, and he comes out, and my wife had said to me, Chris, he probably he doesn't get to go out and see bands. He probably wouldn't mind hearing a song or two. So he's sitting in the middle of the Forum, and it's Bob Seger in an empty Forum. And this was the most memorable audience of the tour, I might add. And there were some amazing ones. And after our first 30 seconds of our song, we were already ready to go. We're a rock and roll band. We don't need to sit up there all day long. So I just said through the microphone, echoing through the Forum, kind of off the mic and on the mic, I go, Bob, do you want to hear the set? And he just raises his water bottle and he goes in his big booming voice. Nobody's in there, remember? And I hear it from his mouth. He goes, play it. So we start playing the set. We get about halfway through the second song. He stands up, he starts shaking his water bottle, and he walks forward and sits in about the third or fourth row, dead center. And we finished the set. And afterwards, we have video proof. It's on YouTube. Afterwards, I walked over and I was like, Bob, thanks so much. And he said, he's like, that's good, SH blank, because this is FCC. Right. And he goes, you got to kill it at home. That's what he said. And I was like, oh my God. And then when I introduced my wife to Bob Seger, I had gotten so comfortable with the man. I'm like, hey, Bob, this is my wife, Valerie. And I've never seen her she works in like movies and stuff out here. I've never seen her like get freaked out by somebody. And she's like, and I forgot, I was like, oh my God, she's from Detroit. This probably was a huge moment, you know? And he's just like, oh, hi, Valerie, nice to meet you. And he just, kept on going. He was amazing. Last night of the tour, I know I'm going on about this, but I figured this is the station to do it on.
That's right.
He last night of the tour, Bob Seger goes to, we waited to have the night moves, that we had.
Hang on, hold on, you froze. You waited for the night moves. Go ahead.
Okay. And let me make sure my connection here is good. Got the right. Okay. Yes. Sorry about that. Well, so we wait for the night moves record, and we go, hey, Bob, would you mind signing this record? And he goes, oh yeah, sure. So he signs the record, and we're standing on stage in Vegas at the big, spot in Vegas that he's going to play. And this is the last night of our leg of the tour with him. Take the picture. Unbelievable. And then I don't know which one of us had the guts to do it, but our bass player, Alex, named his dog Seger like 11 years ago. Like this dog's about 10, 11 years. And so when we formed the band 10 years ago, Seger was part of the band,
right?
Seger the dog.
Yeah.
And he's a big part of our Instagram and everything. And so you tell Bob Seger, this was amazing. We go, Bob, we have a dog and we named him Seger. And he goes, instead of being like weirded out, he goes, really? You got any pictures of him? And we're like, yeah, sure. We show him a picture we're showing Bob Seger a picture of our dog Seger. And Bob Seger goes, hey, he looks like my dog. And he's starting to get one of his guys try and get his picture of his dog. It was just, Okay. I mean, it was amazing. It was astounding. It was everything you could ever wish. And the guy is soulful as hell, friendly as hell. His whole crew was. So he did Midwest proud, man, as he has for all these long years. And it was an honor. And I'll tell anybody within shouting distance that he was one of the nicest people I've ever met. And it's amazing to meet someone that famous for that long. And he seemed unchanged. But when he got up on stage, boy, man, seeing a whole band play by myself, I'm sitting there watching him play against the wind I'm like, there's probably someone on the planet that paid $10 million to have this moment. I'm like listening to him sound check, and he would sound check like it was the show, man.
Right.
Like the whole song, and that band was tight, my friend. There were a lot of tears shed during that tour. A lot of them.
Bob is great. I've had a chance to meet him several times. And one of my highlights of my career was watching him sound check in an empty Palace of Auburn Hills here in Detroit. He did Turn the Page. And I'm like, I'm in this room by myself practically and playing Turn the Page. So it was, that's really cool. But, man, speaking of Bob Seger, I'm just going to throw this out there. Are you familiar with Frankie Miller?
No.
Okay, because Bob Seger got a lot of his stuff from Frankie Miller, who's a European and English guy. And maybe you should go down that rabbit hole.
I thought you were going to ask me about Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels.
No. No, Kid Rock one night, he's like, hey, do you ever hear Frankie Miller? He starts playing, and some of the songs that Bob Seger sang were Frankie Miller songs.
I'm going to have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, so anyway.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah. New project.
Yeah, there you go. You can go down that rabbit hole. So the new record drops coming up on October 8th. And of course, the first single was How High. It's so funny because I watched the video, and I was at a party over the summer that looked just like that video with country artists playing, believe it or not, with Chase Rice and Billy Currington. It's like the craziest thing. But have you guys ever played an outdoor party like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, the whole premise of the video was and it was filmed in that little window where everybody thought this was going to be the summer of love, or before the Delta and all that crap.
Yeah.
So it was like we all had gotten the test and everything. We're like, yeah, all right, we're going to get together. So everybody on that video, from the production to us, to the director, to the people that showed up, nobody had been around really anybody in a long time. So we threw down. And the idea of the video was there was a DJ party going upstairs, and then we were the band that was hired to play the other party that nobody wanted to be at. And you can go watch the video if you want to know how it ends. But I ended up jumping into the swimming pool. The whole party jumped into the pool. It kind of had that Almost Famous kind of vibe. I've never jumped into a pool with a microphone, and nor should you. That was an unplugged microphone. I don't mean to spoil, the Hollywood magic, but don't do that. And it was awesome, man. I mean, that was just a day of extreme love. And then having that be the culmination of having worked with Dave Sardi, who produced the record, and it's done everybody from Modest Mouse to Chili Peppers to the Oasis and LCD Sound System, Wolfmother, Jet, all these bands. Him and what he brought to our sound, and then getting to bring that all to that moment of that making the video for the single. And that's the first time we've ever made a video like that, where it's like we were like, let's make an old school, like, fun throw down party, like rock and roll video, man, like people jumping in swimming pools and having beers and getting crazy. And we had like kind of like the group of people who were a little like more like, say, in their 40s and 50s and 60s down at the party listening to the band, and then all the kids were upstairs. They all come down, they get together, and they're all in the pool. The cops come to bust the party, they end up jumping in the pool. It's let's get together, folks, let's be one. Yeah,
I was wondering when you shot that because of the pandemic and all that. But so the record Play Loud, I mean, obviously that the title says it all, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was just like when we named our band the Record Company. It kind of came out of this defiant, one of our biggest, we formed the band, two Detroit legends helped form our band. One was John Lee Hooker. We listened to John Lee Hooker's Hooker and Heat record in 1971 with Canned Heat. Go listen to that if you don't know it. Detroit, it's fantastic. One of the John Lee's best. And then before we formed the band, about a week before we got together for our first hangout, like jam, I saw Iggy with Mike Watt at the Palladium, and under the name of the Stooges, while they were still touring under that. and I walked out of there absolutely on fire to play in a rock and roll band. So that all was part of it. And now re-ask your question, because I just got so excited I forgot what the hell I was talking about.
Are we supposed to play this record loud?
Yes. So the defiance of naming our band came out of that idea of like, we named ourselves the record company because I was like, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in a rock and roll band. We're a 3-piece. I'm playing lap steel. I'm blowing harmonicas. Nobody's going to sign this band. Let's call ourselves the record company and cut out the middleman. Ironically, also, where the label got interested in us, I'm just realizing all these Detroit connections. I've thought about it before, but never had it just so in focus. At the Fox in Detroit, we were opening for Brian Setzer, and that's where the label saw us. And they got it, you know. So we started talking to them then, and that's how we got on where the beginning of the conversation occurred. And then the name Play Loud. How did that happen? It was the same deal. I was looking through all our bios and stuff. It was the middle of the pandemic. We'd made the record. And I was just like, I knew how it sounded. And I just like got sick of looking at everything that was on it. It was like rock and roll band who plays blah, blah, blah. It was like, I just deleted it all in an act of defiance. And I wrote in all caps, it said the record company. And then you're supposed to write what you are. And I just wrote Play Loud. And that's it. And then all of a sudden I looked at it and I said to myself, I wonder that kind of works. And then so I sent it to Alex and Mark and I'm like, I think I might've just named the record. And we've been together 10 years. So like, just like any 10-year relationship, we're not in the honeymoon stage anymore. To get a good idea across, it takes a little bit, you know, your initial moves are over. You have to go for it. You have to work for it. So I was like, I didn't expect them to come back with a yes, but they both came back with a hell yeah. And that was the name of the record. And that is the name of the record. So that's where it came from. And it came from Dave Sardy, you know, adding Dave Sardy to our sound. If you hear this record and you go, what happened? Why does it sound like this? This is what happens when a band who really knows who they are, but wants to expand and blossom from that spot and not betray their roots, but expand and reflect influences that we have now and from the past, gets strapped onto a guy who, if you never meet Dave Sardy, he's simply two things. He's either a jet engine sitting on the tarmac waiting to go 600 miles an hour, or he's going 600 miles an hour. He has no in between. So once his attention is fully on you, be it on the phone, be it during email, it's 600 miles an hour. And you better bring 600 miles an hour with you, or you're going to get blown out the back of the plane. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's what happened. And that's why the record sounds the way it does. It was a challenge. It was one of the great thrills of my life. And we made it during the pandemic. So it was the high point of my day every day. It was the only thing I had going on that didn't make me miserable, you know? Right. So that really was a big piece of it.
So did you go into the sessions with a lot of stuff already kind of completed in your head, or did you go in with a blank slate?
Kind of both. We had demoed a bunch of songs. We produced our bass player, Alex, produced our first record and recorded it with us in his living room. The second record was kind of a mixture of him producing plus another guy mixing, the whole 9 yards. And the third record, you know, we were like, man, I mean, we kind of probably would want to work with someone else. You know, Alex was very adamant about it's time to try something. So what ended up happening was we had demoed a bunch of songs that were probably at about the level of what we had on our first record. You know, we're like, these are good songs, you know, we like them, but you know, we were like, can they go further? Can we push them further? So our manager, Kevin Levitan, had this idea of, hey, why don't you go in and, you know, we were like, we want to work with a producer. Let's give these songs to some people and see what they have to say about them. And Dave heard them and liked them, and he knew our past stuff. And so we had this, like, instead of going like, are you going to be our producer? It was more like, that's like asking someone to marry you on the first date. You know, it's like, so what we did was kind of similar to how you would approach a new friendship or any new relationship. We went in soft with no expectations. It was like, we'll just meet each other. Let's work on a song from scratch. Let's just see what happens. And we walk in his studio one day, and I'm standing on the left of his board, and his studio, and this is before the pandemic, his studio is in this, like, picture in your mind, an old Hollywood, like if you've ever seen that Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic documentary where they made the record in the house with Rick Rubin.
Yeah, it was a haunted house, right?
Yeah, well, this was kind of similar. It's an old 20s house. It had a pool in the back that looked like Greta Garbo should be diving into it. You know, it's just, and the whole house was just a studio. And it was amazing to us because making a record in that house felt very at home, no pun intended, but we had made everything in the house. And it's like, you weren't in a sterile studio. You were like, you're looking at a piano in a living room that somebody lived in, it just has a vibe. Go into the studio. He's in there. We haven't met him yet. There's this beat just blasting out of the room. And I'm like, man, I don't know who. I turned to Alex, and I think he was working on a band. Dave was working on this Band of Horses record at the time. I'm like, turn to Alex, our bass player, and I go, man, I don't know who he's killing it for in there, but man, he's killing something. It just sounded so good. We walk in there and he's like, hi, I'm Dave. Hi, Chris, Alex, Mark, record company. Nice to meet you. And he's like, hi, yeah. And he's just the music's still going. He like turns it up. He's like, what do you think of this? I'm like, I think it's killer. I'm like, who is it? He's like, it's nobody. It's just a beat that I had that I was thinking, it was a real drum beat that he had made. And he was like, what do you think? Why don't we take this and write a song around it? And we're like, you mean we're not just going to sit down with acoustics dully, awkwardly, and we're a rock and roll band. It was nice to get I can't say that enough. 2021, we are a rock and roll band. And I was like, this is awesome. We're writing off a crushing drum beat. And the song that ended up being on the record and made it was the song called Get Up and Dance With Me. And okay. It's that song was the one that started our relationship with Dave. And then after a month or two, COVID hit. So then we kept writing. And then when the some of the sanctions lifted enough where it was like, okay, if you follow X, Y, and Z, you can go into this as long as you do this, and that. We went in, and he called us. He says, we got the songs, let's do it. So we went in and we made this album.
Well, I'll tell you what, the record drops on October 8th. I'm going to have to get this on vinyl, of course, since you have to have a record by the record company on vinyl. That's the rule, right? That's
what we started because of vinyl records like 10, 11 years ago. Yeah.
How many do you think you have?
My record collection burned up when I was going to school in Milwaukee at a house fire. So I never got back on the horse. I just started collecting guitars. But who did was Alex, and his record collection. So all the records I had left, it was like about 60 or whatever it was, I gave to him, and he has probably about 2,000.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah.
And then I got a dear buddy. I just was at his house. That's a serious collector. He's probably got, I go there about 3 times a year, and we just listen to music. He's got probably about 15,000 some. I mean, it's just ridiculous how many he has. He's like got his own little radio station there. But yeah, I love vinyl. I also, I'm not being ironic when I say I fell in love with cassette I bought an old boombox on a whim, and like an old 1984 a Sanyo, excuse me,
right,
single deck. And I just saw a Run DMC thing, and I just was like, I want one of those. So I bought that, got King of Rock on cassette, and then dug out all my old cassettes from my parents' house. Alex had some cassettes. He's like, you can have these. So I've been rocking the cassette. So this album is coming out on cassette too, to anybody who's got the means to play it or is dorky enough like me to want it.
Well, I have enough of an addiction with vinyl, so I think I'll just stick to that because I've already gone through the cassette phase as a kid as well. But
yep.
But October 13th here at St. Andrews Hall, we'll have to get you a RIF shirt. So next time we do this, you're dressed appropriately.
I got you. Although I have no shame in repping my fellow, this is a great young artist right here, Mike Kroll. So he plays some rock and roll. You guys might like him.
I like that shirt as well. So. All right, Chris. Well, thanks so much for the time. The new record, like I said, Play Loud. Your third album drops October 8th, and looking forward to definitely hearing the rest of it and playing it loud.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.